Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is Greg Johnson, our director of media development. And this is the Produce Reporter Weekend Review. Greg, my weekend was spent looking into companies that won some of the $1.2 billion that the USDA awarded for the Farmers to Families Food Box program. And that has pretty much dominated our news cycle all week. It's been a crazy week going back and forth. We started with who won, first of all, and then people started looking into it, and we saw a lot of unfamiliar faces. And United Fresh sent a letter asking for accountability for some of these contracts that are awarded. What seems to be kind of the root of what people are thinking about this award?
Well, you saw over the weekend that there was a lot of anger from companies that submitted what they feel were good bids and did not get the contracts, and they also didn't get any explanation for why they didn't get contracts. And then the first list that came out Friday had very limited information. It was just a company name, and then you had to try to figure out who it was. Now, since then, USDA has listed contact info, fuller company names, where they're located, what states they're going to be distributing in. And as soon as we got the list, you and I talked about we need to talk to some of these folks. And the first thing I did was contact the two biggest wholesalers in my city, Kansas City, who both got bids, and that's Liberty Fruit and CNC Produce. And we had a story on CNC. They were very open to talk about their plan, and I think they were really proud that they submitted a good plan, and USDA accepted it. And they have a great infrastructure in Kansas City. They have a big facility. They have a lot of contacts with produce suppliers, and they're excited. And they know it's a challenge, but they feel like they're completely up to fulfilling. I believe it was a $25 million contract over 6 weeks. That's a huge amount of produce and boxes in just 6 weeks, but they said they're up to it. And so we wanted to talk to some more people like that. And I talked to Pacific Coast Produce in Portland, and they said they got a contract, and one of their biggest rivals up there, Charlie's Produce, didn't. And so immediately they got together and partnered with them to fulfill their contract. And then, of course, there are these groups out there who we saw, and we're like, who is that? We do not know who that is. There was one not far from you that I believe is a catering company, and that made some people a little upset.
It's called Create a Date, and they immediately announced that they'd won the contract and that they were planning to hire a lot of people to fulfill the $40 million that they received, but details haven't really been forthcoming on that one. Another one that was a virtual unknown for a lot of folks outside of California, at least, was the California Avocados Direct, Ben Holtz Consulting. But you did get a chance to talk to Mr. Holtz about what his plans are.
He says he's up for the challenge. He was very forthright talking to me. He said he submitted a bid that had ranges, and he said USDA picked the top range, and that's $40 million. $40 million, and before this contract, he's a fourth generation avocado grower, and he ran a business selling farm to consumer direct avocados, and then he branched into produce. It was funny, there's a story a month ago in local San Diego news telling a story about how he's doing all this business selling produce boxes direct to consumers. So I'm sure that had something to do with his bid, but now he's got to do what he says is 1,000 full trailer loads of produce a week over 6 weeks. It's a mind-boggling number. And he says he's up to the challenge, and he said, people don't know me. Talk to people in the California avocado industry. They know me. They can vouch for me. And he's
getting a PACA license. That was another thing that a lot of people were looking at the list going, do these people even have PACA licenses? Do they have food safety audits? So a lot of those unknowns, and it sounds like perhaps partnering maybe this guy's future as well, to work with someone who's got a little bit more infrastructure and turning, and just turning 1,000 truckloads of produce in the next 6 weeks is not for the faint of heart.
No, it's an amazing number, and like our stories on Pacific Coast and C&C, they're well-known wholesalers, and they do have a plan, and they talked a little bit about the plan, how they're going to do it. Ben, I don't think completely knows his plan yet, but in his defense, he only found out less than a week ago that he got this huge contract. So he said he's working all day long, figuring out, making contacts. He's got a website that's going live that both food banks who want to receive these boxes can contact him, and suppliers and trucking companies can contact him if they want to participate and be involved in the supply side of it.
Yeah, I think what really maybe enraged some folks in the industry, and I don't think enraged is too strong of a word, is that the program seemed to be modeled after some of the box programs that food service distributors pivoted to at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis. A lot of these folks lost all of their business, or 90% of their business, and they started putting together these boxes, and then this program was introduced, and it seemed like, well, okay, great, we're doing this already. We can just immediately hit the ground running, like C&C, like Pacific Coast Fruits. These companies were already ready to get going on this. And then to see huge numbers go to someone who had no infrastructure, the wedding planner in San Antonio, for example, doesn't really have any infrastructure to do this. I think it's justified for some of these folks to be, wanting more accountability from the program and wanting a second look at some of these contracts.
As of this point, United has not, I've asked them every day this week, have you heard back from USDA on your questions on accountability? And they have not gotten back to me. So that tells me that they are not hearing back. Yeah. And I think it is fair to want to hear some accountability. At the same time, I do have some sympathy that a government program was tasked to do a massive thing very quickly. And even if this was done by the private industry, things would have slipped through the cracks. So of course it's going to. So I think that's why it's nice to talk to some of the people who had good bids and have good plans and feel completely confident that they'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
Well, back to the retail world, you had your weekly visit with Anne-Marie, and produce sales are still up year over year.
So it was a week ending May 3rd, not quite up to Mother's Day yet, right up to Cinco de Mayo, and we're still seeing really strong numbers, 17% year over year increase in fresh produce purchases. I'm a little concerned. I told Anne-Marie that I thought that the Mother's Day bump's going to be a little lower, so what we're going to see coming up on Monday. But then I went to the PMA town hall meeting and listened to some retailers talk in the breakout session, and one of them said it was their biggest Mother's Day ever. So I could be wrong, but here in Texas we saw a lot of restaurants open ahead of Mother's Day with dine-in service, and the takeout lines were hours long, the dine-in lines were hours long. This is something that I had a really great marketing meeting, kind of one of those get-togethers, a workshop for people in marketing that Full Tilt Marketing put together, and we talked about it. And I talked about the arc that I think we're going to see is with messages to consumers is, we're in this with you. Here are the measures we're taking. That was step one. Step two, I think, is, man, I really feel like going back to normal. And I feel like that was what Mother's Day was here in Texas, at least, where people could get out of the house without the government restrictions, and there were places that were open for business. It was limited, but what was open was jam-packed as much as it could have been. So I'm wondering if retail sales, at least here in the Lone Star State, might not quite be as high year over year, but in other areas, I hear it was really strong.
Yeah, we're 60 days post the first lockdowns of mid-March, and people do want to get back to something like normal. I bet a lot of people who hadn't seen their mothers in quite a while made a way to either see them in person, see them at a 10 feet away, do a drive-by. I guarantee that happened a lot of places around the country.
And I guarantee you, in 2 weeks from now, there will be a whole lot of Memorial Day get-togethers. I think that's going to be really the holiday to watch as far as people getting back together. There's a lot of commodities that are tied to Memorial Day, especially something like watermelons, that people are watching the market to see. And then that's also one of the bigger domestic items that's when the season really gets kicked off for them. I think those numbers will be really telling for what's going on with consumers.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're going to see something pretty interesting with Memorial Day, not only in the food industry, but all the states where people want to get out and get together. After 60 days of confinement, you do some crazy things and you just want to go to the beach. Sometimes you do crazy enough things to take showers with citrus items.
Yeah, you should get a video. I learned that my iPhone is, in fact, water resistant. That was helpful. But hey, oranges are 60% year over year increase in sales in navel oranges, which I thought was really interesting. The other thing that is growing tremendously is e-commerce and online grocery. And one of the things that we've seen is retailers testing dark stores. But now we've seen Amazon actually shut the lights off at a Whole Foods store, which, I mean, wow, because is this the future of e-commerce? Retailers are taking it seriously now because this was one of the stores in the Chicagoland area. Granted, Whole Foods has a lot of stores in Chicago, but they have taken it dark and are doing e-commerce fulfillment from there.
E-commerce is growing faster than anyone expected. And I think this is a natural progression and something that analysts have been telling us for the last 6 months that was going to happen. That's going to happen more. And that's what we're seeing. Yeah,
for sure. And actually, Anne-Marie and I talked about this. The e-commerce numbers that we're seeing that the numbers nerds are watching, they predicted this kind of growth. It kind of been not stagnant, but not really a tremendous, exponential growth, but we've skipped ahead 5 years. We've gone from what they expected in 2025 is happening now. Now the challenge is, and we've talked with analysts about this over the last, couple of weeks, of mixed reviews on consumer satisfaction with e-commerce. If retailers can catch up their business and catch up the, wait times to get a pickup, and the fulfillment issues and the out of stocks, if they can get those taken care of, then they will maintain a lot more of the customers than they expected. But they've got to really deliver on some of this stuff that I'm still seeing people stock pickup spots for grocery. And I haven't even tried it. I should try it, but I haven't even tried online pickup since this whole thing started.
Well, it's one of the few places you could go.
Yep.
So why take that away?
I have a really cute mask with some strawberries on it. I'm going to Costco. Well, that's it for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up.
And this weekend is the opening of the first major sports league in the world, the German Bundesliga. So
yes.
Enjoy your live sports.
Although that is some Mannschaft jersey, I should go get my. I've got Dortmund. I've got
Germany shirt.
I've got Bayern Munich.
Can you guess as to how old it is?
Well, it's only got 3 stars on it.
Who's on the back? Right? Yep, that's right. Want to see it?
Yeah, who's on the back? Oh yeah, you know what? I've got one of those. Hey!
We could have gone double Kevin Kuriani.
I didn't know who was on the back of your jersey. We could have totally been double here. I got to get rid of this background. I cannot believe that this random jersey that was on the back on the wall in my son's room is actually the same one you were wearing.
Exact same. That is completely amazing.
That's hilarious.
Not a rather poor striker in the early 2000s when Germany was struggling as a national team. between the
Perhaps,
Klinsman the player and Klinsman the coach era.
perhaps that is why I found this jersey, as scritchy
Probably.
as it is. It's very scritchy.
The garage
Good-
sale, or is that that's from Goodwill?
Yeah, yeah. It's not very comfortable.